Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this month's Wellington Trust Heritage Lecture. My name is Alistair Chapman. I'm chairman of the Wellington Trust, and for those of you who have come on regularly, welcome back. To those of you who may be on for the first time, you are most welcome, and we do hope to see you again. Tonight's lecture is fascinating. We have two of the most experienced mariners that I could possibly ever imagine to give this delivery, to talk about the concept of voyaging across the Isthmus of Panama in Central America via the Panama Canal. I will come and describe Malcolm and John in a minute for those who don't know him. But I wonder if in the meantime, I can just have the next slide. A little bit of housekeeping, that's me, with books in the background, all for sale. It is a great pleasure, as I say, to see you. Could I just say that the lecture this time is going to be recorded, and it is quite comprehensive. You'll see why. It's going to be a mixture of slides and also video as well, and it's all fascinating stuff. At the end of it, Captains Malcolm Parrott and John Freestone have very kindly offered to give us questions and answers. And in order to do that, for those who are not familiar, and I can see there are 84 of you on so far, which is excellent. At the bottom of your screen, in the center of mine, and hopefully in the center of yours, is an icon that says Q&A, questions and answers. Please just click on that if you have any question and write your question. You can address it to everyone. I think that is right, Fiona. Then at the end of the lecture, we will collect those and we will read those questions out for John and Malcolm to address. You will also see there is another icon there that says chat. Please do not, repeat not, put your questions onto the chat, otherwise they will be lost. It's the Q&A icon you need. At the end of this lecture, we have a recording, and we will, as is the case every month, be sharing that recording with you by link, which will be sent to you, so you can enjoy it again. And indeed, you can enjoy all our previous, and I think there are 7 or 8 of them, lectures on our website, which is on that link. Now, it is my great pleasure to welcome our 2 speakers tonight. I think they will describe themselves better. I could think of a number of terminologies for a pair of past master mariners, but I will save that compliment for them to do. Captain Malcolm Parrott, first of all, has been in the shipping industry for many years in containerization, ferries, ports and harbors, with experience in both the merchant and military ships through the RFA, the Royal Fleet Auxiliary. At sea for many years, Malcolm has served as chief officer in the Royal Fleet Auxiliary, and his command experience over many years culminated in his being master of a cruise ship. He lived for many years in New Zealand in his youth, and I think maybe he may have been born there, but he will no doubt put me right if I'm wrong on that. And Malcolm was at that time also an air traffic control officer in the Royal New Zealand Air Force at Wellington International Airport, which is reputedly the windiest landing and takeoff airstrip in the world, a fact to which I can personally vouch. It was very uncomfortable. Coming ashore from sea, Malcolm served as a senior manager and director of a major shipping company. He is currently managing director and executive vice president of the Maritime Group, Inc., which has offices in Seattle, Honolulu, Singapore, Sevenoaks, and also, I'm pleased to say, on board the headquarters ship Wellington. He is also a past master of the Honorable Company Master Mariners. He held that honor and that post between 2009 and 2010. Now moving on to Captain John Freestone, MNM. John grew up in Greenwich, and indeed he still lives there. His great-grandfather, his grandfather, and his uncle were all sailors. His only ambition was to go to sea, and I'm not at all surprised. After attending London Nautical School, John left at 15 to work on the Thames for R.G. Odell passenger vessels, trading mainly between Greenwich and Hampton Court. He became an indentured apprentice for Saint Line, traveling by Orient Express to join his first ship. That's amazing. Cape St. David in Venice. His voyage aboard the Liberty ship St. Dunstan was 2 years and 7 days without returning home. Some record. He became captain at the tender age of 29, and sailed with various companies until joining the Port of London pilotage in 1989, where he became the senior river and bridge pilot, operating between the Nore Bank and the Nore light vessel off Sheerness, upriver as far as Putney. John also became master of the Honourable Company of Master Mariners in 2012. And during the Diamond Jubilee River pageant, he was the captain of the Queen's barge, the Spirit of Chartwell, that conveyed Her Majesty and His Royal Highness Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, and other members of the royal family, downstream in the rain. John retired in 2013 after over 50 years at sea, an incredible record. John was awarded the Merchant Navy Medal in 2009 for services to pilotage and youth sail training. He is a governor of the RNLI and a governor of the London Nautical School. In recent years, and I know this well, John was a very able marine superintendent for the Honourable Company of Master Mariners and also the Wellington Trust. And he finally swallowed the anchor this year. Those, ladies and gentlemen, are our speakers. And now, if I may, over to you, Malcolm and John.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Alistair, for the introduction. John and I, together with our colleague, Orlando Allard, an ex-chief pilot of the Panama Canal, and a backroom team from the UK and the US, were hired to help update the operational procedures in the new Panama Canal, which had been opened in June 2016. We carried out a wide-ranging and pivotal consultancy with ACP, that is, Autoridad del Canal de Panama, probably better known to you as the Panama Canal Authority. This was to improve the operations within the new Panama Canal and the new Neopanic locks. The intrepid Panamanian adventurers, John, Orlando, Malcolm, and John and Malcolm driving a model bulk carrier through the 2-mile-long model of the new Panama Canal at Summit. Our presentation is split between John and me. I will be talking you through the history of Panama, including the Panama Canal, and John will be taking you through some videos that we've put together from our own photography. The Spanish conquistador Rodriguez de Bastidas discovered Panama in 1501, and a young page, Vasco Núñez de Balboa, accompanied him, returning later to discover the Pacific Ocean and that the country was an isthmus. The idea for a canal across Panama dates back to the 1513 discovery of the Pacific Ocean by de Balboa, when he stood on the heights of Darien to the southwest of present-day Panama City. The earlier Central American European colonists recognized this potential, and several proposals for such a canal were made. Emperor Charles V of Spain was one of the first to order surveys to build a canal through the isthmus back in 1534. The Spanish at the time were plundering the gold and other treasures of the indigenous peoples of South and Central America. The idea of a canal would allow Spanish bullion ships of the Pacific Treasure Fleet to sail unhindered between the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. As it was, the ships had to unload their cargoes in the new port of Panama City and then transport by mule trains across the Isthmus to the port of Cristobal. This was a difficult and treacherous journey across the Great Divide, through disease-ridden jungle and constant attack by the indigenous people of the region. The Spanish dealt with the latter problem by sword, musket, and genocide. There were two routes across the Isthmus for more than 3 centuries. The canal was obviously never built, and nothing changed until the arrival of the new technology, when the idea of a railway was first mooted. By the 19th century, businessmen thought it was time to develop a cheaper, safer, and faster alternative crossing of the Isthmus. Railway technology had developed in the early 19th century. Given the cost and difficulty of constructing a canal with the available technology, a railway seemed the ideal solution. In 1838, a French company was given a concession for the construction of a road, rail, or canal route across the Isthmus. An initial engineering study recommended a sea-level canal from Limon Bay to the Bay of Boca del Monte, 12 miles west of Panama. The proposed project collapsed for lack of technology and the funding needed. A railway line was eventually built by the United States, and the principal incentive was the vast increase in passenger and freight traffic from eastern USA to California following the 1849 Californian gold rush. The first revenue train ran over the full length on January 28, 1855. For a time, the Panama Railway Company also owned and operated seagoing ships that provided mail and passenger services to a few major US East Coast and West Coast cities respectively. The infrastructure of this railway was of vital importance to the construction of the Panama Canal, although it was proposed in typical Victorian fashion that ships could be transported by a super railway. A half-century later, the Panama Canal was planned over a parallel route. The history of the railway is a separate presentation in itself for another day. An initial attempt by the Frenchman Ferdinand Marie Visconti de Lesseps, builder of the Suez Canal, to build a sea-level canal failed after a great deal of excavation and loss of life through disease between 1881 and 1889. Work started in 1881, but was subsequently stopped due to engineering problems and a high mortality rate among the workers. An estimated 22,000 workers lost their lives to yellow fever, malaria, snake bites, and accidents. The North and South American tectonic plates were originally separated with tidal currents rising and falling in the adjoining channel. Before South America crashed into North America, there was a major ocean current there. Once adjoined by the isthmus, the tidal flow was trapped on the Pacific side, resulting in the Atlantic side of the Panama Isthmus having a very much lower tidal range than the Pacific side. The range on the Atlantic side averages 0.8 meters and the Pacific side 5 meters and can reach 6.96 meters. There is also a difference between the two oceans of about 20 centimeters. Ferdinand de Lesseps had not, however, given consideration to the difference in tidal range between the Atlantic, Caribbean Sea, and Pacific Oceans. You can imagine what would have happened if de Lesseps had been successful in creating a sea-level canal. It would be a raging rapids every 6 hours. De Lesseps did, however, construct a canal channel, which was to the northeast of the canal finally built in 1914, and had also started to dig into the Great Divide in 1886. The original French channel has now been used as the entrance to the new locks, Aguacara locks, on the Atlantic side of the Isthmus, and the cut in the Great Divide eventually became known as the Culebra Cut. Interest in a US-led canal effort picked up as soon as France abandoned the project. The Monroe Doctrine of 1823 opposed European states attempting to colonize North or South American countries. Initially, the Panama site was considered unfavorably in the US due to the failed French efforts, and also because Colombia, of which Panama was an integral part, was unfriendly towards the US. The USA first sought to construct a completely new canal through Nicaragua instead. Extensive lobbying of US lawmakers, coupled with the support of a nascent independent movement among the Panamanian people, led to a simultaneous revolution in Panama and the negotiation of the Hay-Hiran Treaty of 1903. This secured both independence for the Republic of Panama and the right for the US to lead a renewed effort to construct a canal. Colombia's response to the Panamanian independence movement was tempered by US military presence. The move is often cited as a classic example of the era of gunboat diplomacy. Work commenced on the construction of the canal on May 4, 1904. The route surveyed back in the 16th century is practically the same route eventually followed by the USA to build the current canal. The narrow land bridge or isthmus between the North and South America now houses the Panama Canal, a strategic waterway passage between the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans. The Americans took control of the canal and created the Panama Canal Zone, officially opening the canal on August 15, 1914. Although leased from the Panamanian government, the zone became an integral part of the USA until 1979. The Americans appointed John F. Wallace, a railway engineer, as the first chief engineer of the project, but he resigned in 1905 and was replaced by another railway engineer, John F. Stevens, who in turn was replaced by General George Washington Goethals, a civil engineer of the US Army, in 1907. He soon got to grips with what was needed and appointed Major David Dubois Gaillard to be in charge of completing the canal passage through the Culebra Divide, originally started by de Lesseps. The passage bore his name as the Gaillard Cut until replaced by Culebra Cut in 2001. Success hinged on the fact that the American engineers realized that the canal could only be constructed using a water lift system or locking system. They also needed to control the tropical diseases such as yellow fever and malaria. As it was, 10,000 workers died of these diseases, snake and insect bites, and other fatal accidents in the construction of the US canal. The lock chambers are massive concrete structures. The side walls are from 14 to 17 meters thick at the bases. Towards the top, where less strength is required, they taper down in steps to 2.4 meters. The center wall between the chambers is 18 meters thick and houses 3 galleries that run its full length. The lowest of these is a drainage tunnel. Above this is a gallery for electrical cabling, and towards the top is a passageway that allows operators to gain access to the lock machinery. There are 2 independent transit lanes, since each lock is built double. The size of the original locks is the limiting factor of the maximum size of ships that can transit the canal prior to the construction of the new third set of Neopanic locks. There are 12 locks in total. From the outset in the early 20th century, it was considered an important safety feature that ships be guided through the lock chambers by electric locomotives, known as mules, named after the animals traditionally used to cross the Isthmus of Panama. These run on the lock chamber walls. The locomotives are used for side-to-side and braking control in the locks. The locomotives themselves run on rack tracks with broad gauge 1.524 meters or 5 foot, to which they are geared. Traction is by electrical power, supplied through a third rail laid below surface level on the land side. Each locomotive has a powerful auto-tension winch operated by the driver. A failure of the lock gates, for example, caused by a runaway ship hitting a gate, could unleash a flood on the lands downstream of the locks, as the lakes above the locks, Gatun Lake or Miraflores Lake, drains through the lock system. Extra precaution against this is provided by doubling the gates at both ends of the upper chamber in each flight of locks. Hence, there are always at least 2 gates in each flight of locks that would have to fail to allow the higher level of water to pass downstream. Originally, a further precaution was taken by having a heavy chain cable lift in front of the lock gates as they closed. By damming the Chagres River near its estuary into the Caribbean Sea, the American engineers were able to flood the central plateau and form what is now called the Gatun Lakes. The Gatun Dam itself is used for hydroelectric power, and the lake is a supply of fresh water to the Republic of Panama. A further dam was constructed in 1939 higher up the River Chagres, beyond the township of Balboa, a major maintenance center of the canal. The Panama Canal locks are a lock water chamber lift system that raises a ship The Panama Canal locks are a lock water chamber lift system that raises a ship approximately 26 meters or 85 feet above sea level to the main elevation of the canal, and then, having crossed the Isthmus of Panama, lowers them down again to sea level. The lock chambers are entirely driven by gravity, taking water from the canal and Gatun Lake. The locks were one of the greatest engineering works ever to be undertaken when they were opened in 1914. No other concrete construction of comparable size was undertaken until the Hoover Dam in the 1930s. The size of the original locks is the limiting factor of the maximum size of ships that can transit the canal prior to the construction of the new third set of Neopanic locks. The Panama Canal is a major world trade route and accounts for 6% of world trade. Increasing the size, it is expected to become accountable for 7 to 9% of world trade in years to come. The canal services global customers and is vital for the Panamanian economy and well-being of the people of Panama. The canal is administered by the Panama Canal Authority and is an agency of the government of the Republic of Panama, responsible for the operation and management of the Panama Canal. The ACP took over the administration of the canal from the Panama Canal Commission, a joint US-Panama agency that managed the canal, on December the 31st, 1999, when the canal was handed over from the United States of America to the Republic of Panama, as per the Torrijos-Carter treaties. Signed in 1977, these treaties abrogated the original treaty of 1903. There are 2 treaties. The first treaty is officially titled the Treaty Concerning the Permanent Neutrality and Operations of the Panama Canal and is commonly known as the Neutrality Treaty. Under this treaty, the US retained the permanent right to defend the canal from any threat that might interfere with its continual neutral service to ships of all nations. The second treaty is titled the Panama Canal Treaty and provided that, as from 1200 on December 31st, 1999, Panama would assume full control of canal operations and become primarily responsible for its defense. As an aside, it might have been noticed that Iran has sent 2 warships to Venezuela recently to prop up the USA's arch enemy Nicolas Maduro. This could be an attempt to block the Panama Canal. This slide shows the current Panama maximum tonnages and dimensions, i.e. Panamax.
No, the rowing boat running lines. I said today with the pilot, that's a good idea.
Midships. Midship.
But that's a good idea, David, huh? Yeah. You never have engine trouble.
Engine trouble? No. With this boat here. They have tried with outboard motors. That's why then the problem.
Yeah.
So nothing better than the old style.
Old style, yeah.
Midship. Midship. Ramarul. Midship. Starboard 20. Bravo, advance.
The mules are coupling up. We're on our way, heading northwest from the Pacific to the Atlantic. Now lifted 54 feet, waiting to enter Miraflores Lake. Russian captain came over and said, I know you. You're a pilot in London. Told him, he said, asked if I worked here, but I told him no. But I was beginning to think it would be nice. Just about to leave Miraflores Lock now, to cross the lake, about 2.5 miles to Pedro Well. The further lift will total 85 feet. Yeah, we're in Pedro Miguel now, and after leaving, we'll be passing under the Anniversary Bridge and entering the Galliard Cut. It's now called the Calibra Cut, which is Spanish for snake. Yeah, we anchored in Gatun Lock and travelled ashore with David.
John will now talk you through a video taken by the 3 emerging factors that might affect the Panama Canal in the future are as shown here. China, Silk Road linking Asia, Middle East and Europe, Russian Northern Sea route in the Arctic Ocean, Canadian Northwest Passage, rumours of freight rail across Brazil and Peru, improving land bridging in USA, Canada and Mexico, future container ships bigger than Neopanic vessels, and Hyperloop, shipping's next disruptor. As I stated before, the Calibra, or Galliard Cut, was a magnificent piece of civil engineering in its own right, having first been started in 1849 when the railroad was constructed. Originally only 150 metres wide, it has been progressively widened to 250 metres and recently to 290 metres. There are plans to increase this further. There have been many landslips on both Gold Hill and Constructor Hill, which have now been terraced. The last photograph in this slide shows the old Pedro Miguel locks looking north into what is left of the Culebra Cut. To the left, you can see the newly constructed Boroquin Dam and Miraflores Lake. The new canal can be clearly seen on the left of the dam. Now we As we all know, vessel size has grown exponentially since the late 1960s, first with tankers, then progressing to bulkers, and in the last 25 years, container vessels and cruise ships. VLCCs and VLBCs have never been able to transit the Panama Canal, and the ACP do not consider they ever will. However, the main trade through the canal was and has been cargo, passenger, and LNG LPG. In 2004, when the expansion project was first suggested, large container vessels were 8,000 or 9,000 TEU, and the board and expert opinion considered they would not grow above 14,000 TEU. Ports throughout the world were gearing up for 14,000 TEU vessels, and it seemed reasonable the canal should do the same. The canal expansion project of 2007 to 2016 added a third lane by the construction of lock chamber complexes at each end of the canal. The eventual cost of the expansion was approximately US $18 billion. One lock complex, Coquille Locks, is located on the Pacific side, southwest of the existing Miraflores locks. The other, Agua Clara Locks, is located east of the existing Gatun locks. Each of these new locks complexes have 3 consecutive chambers. The new third set of locks were inspired by the Berendijk lock in Antwerp, Belgium, and water-saving basins used in German canals. To accommodate the new third set of Neopanic locks, a 3.2 kilometre (1.73 nautical mile) long access channel was excavated to connect the new Atlantic locks with the existing sea entrance of the canal. The old de Lesseps original channel was utilised. To connect the new Pacific side locks with the existing channels, 2 new access channels were built. The new 5.54 kilometres (2.99 nautical miles) North Access Channel, which connects the new Pacific side Coquille Lock with the Culebra Cut, circumventing the Miraflores Lake. The channel runs along the newly constructed Boroquin Dam that separates the channel from Miraflores Lake, which has a water level that is 9 metres lower due to the descalation of the Pedro Miguel locks. Some 190,000 tonnes of steel, mostly from Mexico, are entrenched in heavily reinforced concrete to build the lock chambers on the Atlantic and Pacific sides. And the new lock gates measure up to 10 metres (33 feet) thick, 30 metres (98 feet) high, and 58 metres (198 feet) wide. The new lock chambers are 427 metres (1,400.92 feet) long, 55 metres (180.45 feet) wide, and 18.3 metres (60.04 feet) deep. They use rolling gates instead of mitered gates. The operation in the new locks use tugboats to position the vessels instead of electric locomotives. Even in the current situation, with 2 lock lanes, water supply can be limited at the end of Panama's dry season, when the water level is low in the lakes. The lock chambers are controlled from a state-of-the-art control tower built adjacent to the middle chamber of each set of locks. Under the control of a skilled water engineer, the operation is an effortless transition from sea level to canal level, or vice versa. As you can see from this slide, vessels now allowed to transit the canal are well short of the 22,000 TEU behemoths sailing the seven seas today. Originally, when the canal was built, there was only one swing bridge over the canal, located at Miraflores Locks, and this was the main north-south road through the Isthmus, known as the Pacific Highway and running from Vancouver in Canada to Santiago in Chile. This is now in disuse and serves no purpose as the new Boroquin Channel cut off the road serving the bridge. A new bridge was built on the Pacific side in 1962 and has an air draft of 61.3 meters at high water springs. A second bridge, the Centennial Bridge, was built in 2004 just to the north of San Miguel Locks at the entrance to the Culebra Cut, having an air draft of 80 meters. A third bridge was under construction during our visit and is known as the Atlantic Bridge, which extends across the northern entrance to the canal. It has an air draft of 75 meters at high water springs. It goes without saying that limiting air draft to the canal is 61.3 meters. John will now talk you through a video that we took entering Coquille Locks on the Pacific side of the canal.
John, you're on mute at the moment.
This is a boarding officer setting up.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
It's okay.
As it's first voyage through.
It shows us now making our approach, tells us how far we're. This is in the locks mode. Okay. It shows us our speed, rate of turn. Okay.
Oh, each end, yeah.
Yeah, at each end. All right. Distance from the wall, and there's a graphic representation of it. As we get closer to the locks, we'll, instead of it being just on this side, it'll show how far we are on both sides of the wall. When you go, this is a docking mode, okay, normally used for the locks, and it would show a single line like this will show here, because see, this projected line is the face of the pier.
Like a parallel index.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. This is the center line. This, of course, is the ship's heading line. And then we're 100 feet off and 152 feet off. I'm gonna come on outside and take a look. There, it's pretty good. And the adjustment is plus 0.3 degrees.
I mean, when you're talking 0.3 degrees over the length of the ship.
That's you see, it was 5 foot difference.
Yeah.
It was a 5 foot difference.
Yeah.
And so change that to 1 degree. Okay, that's triple that. So you're 15 feet. Now, and it is the ones that are by the gates. But you see the line of bollards?
Yeah.
They're about 10 feet from the edge of the wall. Close enough that you can use that as a guide. As I was saying, the closer you are, it's hard to tell 38 feet,
Yeah.
okay? But it's pretty easy to tell 2 and 5 feet.
No, it's the tug's backing off now to leave it clear to go.
Let me tell you something. That's pretty quick coming in.
Yeah.
Got another 50, 60 feet. That's 50 feet, 60 feet to there, so anywhere from
Yeah, that was an interesting voyage, thanks to Captain Robert Boyer.
And what of the future? How large are ships going to grow? Will they have to consider building a bigger canal? Where will the water come from to feed it? These are all questions posed to ACP for the future. And now a video of John persuading tugmasters that the original Panama hat was invented by the Royal Navy.
Can I take a picture of this? My guapa captain, eh? It's correct, my guapa?
No, guapa no, guapa is women.
Oh my God, sorry. Tell everyone in England that I'm training to be a captain in the Panama Canal because I've got a great hand.
I am recording now.
Oh, good.
No problem.
So,
So you look like a Panamanian.
yeah, Captain, am I okay for this job? Actually, I'm not the captain, this is the real captain.
This is the #1 tugmaster and the #1 London pilot.
Good. This was a very large ship there, 333 metres, 48 metres beam. I left at Parrott without convincing the crew that the Royal Navy invented the real hat. Yeah, I've got to thank Nick Jellicoe for sending these fantastic pictures. This is HMS New Zealand, my grandfather's ship, going through the Galliard Cup with no tugs. Yeah, I'd like to say thanks to Nick Jellicoe and the great crew of the tug Cerro Santiago. Thanks very much.
Thank you for listening to our presentation. We can now take 1 or 2 questions. However, we cannot guarantee that we will be able to answer them. Thank you.
There we are. Malcolm and John, that was absolutely fascinating. As an ex-short service naval man, I never had reason to go anywhere near the Panama Canal, but I am considerably awestruck actually at the whole process of getting a container of that sort of size into a channel as narrow as that, and actually getting through the 40 odd miles of the canal. I think it's phenomenal. What was going through my mind when you were talking, apart from the intensely detailed timeline going back to the 16th century, which is quite fascinating, what was going through my mind were the defense implications, and particularly probably today. No doubt during the Second World War and even during the First World War, there were military ships going through and whatever. But what do you think really, if I can ask either of you, I don't know, Malcolm or John, what do you feel are the really pressing questions when it comes to defense? Does it have the same sort of implications as Suez has had over the years, going back to the war back in the Israel-Egypt war and whatever, etc., and Egypt blocking the Panama Canal, Suez Canal, and whatever. Does it have the same sort of risks, or is it because it's been under US control for so long, and now for the last 20 years or so under Panama control, do these things not arise, or are they things that would concern the shipping industry? And indeed, what are the alternatives? I presume to go around via Cape Horn, nothing else.
Yes, Alistair. The implications are not as serious as the Suez Canal. Approximately 13% of world trade actually passes through the Suez, and only half of that through the Panama. However, it has a very, very important trade route as far as the Americas are concerned, in particular. And of course, it used to have implications of trade between Australia, New Zealand, and Europe as well, that ships certainly went to there. There, as we said in the presentation, there are emerging factors that could cause problems to the Panama Canal for other routes, going across the Northwest Passage, going around South America, the land bridging in America, in USA, Mexico, Canada. They're also talking about it in Peru and Brazil. So, although it is important, I don't think you can say it's as important strategically as the Suez Canal. Does that answer?
It does indeed. I guess probably from economic implications, and they go hand in hand with defense as well. It's very important for the Republic of Panama, but that is probably one of their major sources of income. Would that be a fair comment? In which case, if this competition did come in,
absolutely, it's in fact the Panama Republic of Panama relies on the Panama Canal as its main source of income.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Other income is through tourism.
Yeah, such as exists now. That is really good. Thank you so much for that. Can I ask you a much simpler question, maybe? How long does it take, or would you expect to take, if you're going through? I think you said you've done 50 odd passages through the Panama Canal. Is that correct, Malcolm?
I have. It's if you're planning a trip through the Panama Canal, you should allow 24 hours because there are holdups. The passage time itself, it actually takes between 8 and 10 hours. John might like to say something about what the holdup can be.
Yes, especially when it. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Especially when the ship's going through for a maiden voyage through the canal, then the measuring and the time taken to set up all that gear that you saw on the Maersk, it was that takes a lot of time. They're down in the Bay of Panama before they can go through. But if you're going through the smaller locks, the older locks, you can do it in 10 hours.
Yeah.
Interesting indeed. That's good. Thank you both for that. I see there are some questions. I wonder at this point if I can hand over to you, Fiona, our trust manager, to put up the questions that members of our audience have asked.
Certainly, Alistair. Okay, so we do have quite a few questions. Chris Price is asking, is there a record for the shortest time to transit the new canal?
Good question. When we were first employed to try and help them solve their operational problems. Good evening, Chris, by the way. there were about 2.4 ships transiting the canal, Neopanic ships, that is, transiting the canal a day. They had planned for up to 12 to 14 ships to transit. It was left to us to find out what was going wrong, which hopefully we succeeded in doing. Answering the question of what the fastest time of a Neopanic ship going through the canal is, I would say it probably 6 hours. I think I remember one going through in something like 6.5 hours. Can you remember that?
No, I can't. Yeah, I can't remember. Shortest. Just depends if everything's online and everything goes well.
Well, I'd like to say aloha to William Anderson, who's joining us from Honolulu this evening. And he's asking, what are some of the measures being taken to protect the future security of the Panama Canal?
Good evening, Bill. Bill is a colleague of mine. Thank you for asking me that question. The treaty that was negotiated between President Carter and the President of the Panamanian Republic stated that if the canal was threatened in any way, then the US would step in. And I think that more or less happened when Noriega was arrested.
Thank you. Simon Gaskin is asking, can you revisit the tidal stream mechanics on either side of the isthmus, please?
Could you repeat that, please?
Yeah. Can you revisit the tidal stream mechanics on either side of the isthmus?
I'm not quite sure what he means by that.
I think he means rise and fall, actually, Malcolm. And
well, the rise on the Atlantic side is 0.8 meters, and on the Pacific side it's about 5.5 meters. But there is a difference in the height of the mean height of the sea in the Pacific and the Atlantic, and the Pacific is 20 centimeters higher than the Atlantic, believe it or not. So you've got a big rise and fall on the Pacific side and not very much on the Atlantic side. I hope that answers the question. Does it?
Wonderful. I'm sure Simon will ask if not. Commodore Russell Best has said, I went through the Panama in 1991 in HMS Cumberland. We had US pilots then. Are the majority of pilots now Panamanian or Hispanic? And how would you rate the pilotage service by comparison to the Suez, for instance?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. The pilots now, although some are American, but Zonies, they call them Zonies, they all have to be Panamanian. And when I expressed what a lovely job it was, they said, well, if you marry a Panamanian woman, you can have a job here. I said, but they said, we'll look for one for you. I haven't actually told my wife that, and tonight, so I know.
Not until now, John.
Hello, my phone's ringing. No, they are. They're all Panamanian citizens now. Yeah. Although the Merce, he was American. Robert Boy, the guy who was very, very helpful with all the iPads. Yeah.
The pilotage is still very, very professional, and I understand that Orlando Allard, who was our colleague, who was the chief canal pilot at one stage, is listening in tonight. So I'm sure Orlando will tell you that they are very, very professional.
Yeah, I second that. Well, you saw the videos that I took. Excellent jobs. They were all excellent jobs, and really good-natured guys to work with. So yeah, very impressive.
Likewise were the tug masters. They were very, very professional.
Yeah.
And we have Michael Shrives is asking, is there a minimum size of vessel, such as a yacht? Oh, sorry, just lost the question. Such as a yacht, and how are they administered to allow transit from the Atlantic to Pacific or vice versa?
Yeah, they normally they muster quite a few small that will go through at the same time. So there's also the pleasure boats that you can view the locks in. So they muster those all in one lock together, or put them ahead of a ship, and so they can go through again.
They don't, of course, use the mules. They use handheld lines.
Yeah.
Okay. Paul Kennelly is on tonight and is asking, can HMS New Zealand, may I have the pictures to give to the RNZN Museum of Auckland?
Yeah, actually, I went to the 2016 100th anniversary of Jutland down in Portsmouth, and I took all the letters from my mother to my grandfather when he was at Jutland, prior to Jutland, the Heligoland Bight, and they are priceless. And Jenny and I took them with us. The first time they'd been out of the house, took them with us down to Portsmouth, and the Kiwis were absolutely enchanted with this. So I think I'm going to leave it to New Zealand.
And Maria Dixon, just greetings from Panama. Captain Orlando Allo, great presentation, Malcolm and John.
Thanks very much, Maria.
And is Malcolm, is Orlando there as well?
I'm not sure at the moment, but we'll probably be able to tell afterwards.
Aye.
Right. I think we're probably running out of time on the questions.
You've got to ask that last question, Fiona.
Oh, sorry, I've just seen that. Okay, the very low rate of accidents in the Kana is a good reflection of the quality of the work of pilots and towboat masters. Last few years, it's been 0.03.
Yes, that's very correct. They have a very, very good safety record. It compares with how many people lost their lives when it was being built.
Wonderful.
And to end on a happy note, perhaps I'll just ask that last question, which comes from an anonymous attendee. One for you, John. Did John take a sack of carrots to keep the mules happy?
You know, one of my saddest times was I was going through the canal out to New Zealand, and we had a British crew. And as we came to the first lock, the deck boy was coming out with a big bag of bread that it's really quite sad. They told him this was for the mules, and the poor lad, he was so disappointed that mules there, and he was almost in tears. He was only about 15. Yeah, sad story.
Oh, that's wonderful. Just to clarify, Maria Dixon is in fact, I think, Captain Orlando. I'm on Maria's link. Sorry, it's me, Orlando. So just for the record, Malcolm and John.
Oh, right.
Okay.
So
he's online, and maybe, hopefully, if we go into the next phase when we finish the formal proceedings tonight, maybe he'd like to come into the chat and download.
We really hope so. A wonderful guy to spend time with in Panama, Orlando.
Oh, that's excellent. And I'm jolly grateful for these, everyone from Honolulu and other places coming on and sort of increasing our international reach, which is fantastic. And you, Kenley, as well. Jolly good of you to get out of bed so early in the morning. Well done. Bravo, Zulu. I think, well, it's for you, Fiona. I think if we move to the next slide, thank you all for questions. I'll come back to that in a minute. Okay.
And it's my turn now.
Go ahead, Jenny.
Thank you. Our next lecture is Monday, the 9th of August. And this is part of the series we have for our forthcoming South Asian Seafarers exhibition, which opens with the ship and some other attractions like augmented reality in the wheelhouse on the 25th of July on Sundays and Mondays. So we hope those of you who are within traveling distance can come and see us. Sorry, those of you who are in Honolulu, Panama, Australia and New Zealand. We have Asif Shakur, who's an independent researcher. And this is also one for the genealogists amongst you, because we've discovered that he, both his grandfathers rather, were Lascars in the early 20th century and served in World War I and later, and one of them right up to the 1950s. He's going to be interviewed by Dr. Georgie Weems, University of East London. And the story, I've seen this, and the stories are absolutely fascinating. So we hope you'll come and join us with that one. And you'll receive details of in due course. And here comes the plug, I'm afraid. Any donation, large or small, towards the preservation of the Wellington and the running of the ship is much appreciated. And we thank all of you who've already donated. We have our new website up and running, thewellingtontrust.org. So please go on and take a look. There's lots of wonderful information on there and opportunities to help us and support us in other ways too. So thank you very much for all the donations we've been receiving this week. It's been fantastic. Next slide, please.
Well, now it remains me with great pleasure to thank you, Captains Malcolm and John, for your fascinating lecture this evening. I think actually the caliber of the questions represents the interest in that topic. I must say I still had a mental vision that the Panama Canal ran east to west, which as an ex-mariner in a small way leaves me covered in shame. It is southeast to northwest, as we know. It's been a fascinating talk. You covered the history, you covered the technical issues, you covered the politics to an extent. There was no stone unturned. We all know, or we sort of know more about the Suez Canal. The Panama is something that just existed in our geography books when we were at school many, many years ago, some of us. And I think it's been a real eye-opener, and thank you so much for your contribution. And I will say as well, bravo Zulu, as far as your technology is concerned. We did a lot of rehearsing for this lecture, and it was causing real issues for you. We were sitting by watching you go through these. But I think you probably navigated the lecture technically as well as I imagine you would have navigated the Panama Canal as well. So well done indeed. And thank you so much, both of you, John and Malcolm, once again for attending. And may I finally, and by no means least, thank everybody who's coming to this lecture, both those who come in regularly, bless you, and also those who are new to it. And I hope those who are new will return. I think we try and use the word heritage in all our lectures, looking back, but for the right reasons, looking at things that matter, things that have changed, but things that are still important. We learn a lot from history. That is a lesson that a lot of people do not understand still. And therefore, it's very important to us and hopefully to you that these lectures do happen. And I think this has been a very, very suitable topic tonight. Thank you for coming on. I think probably that's it. But what I will say now is if you'd like to stay behind, and there's usually a very good gathering, a goodly gathering of people, do please just stay where you are and you'll be brought in. rather as we have that 60 seconds of silence at the start of the lecture as you come in, and it is a bit of a rolling process to do that. So we never start as soon as we switch on the lecture. So by the same token, our wizzo, Matt Edgar, our technical wizzo, is going to be bringing you in now into the lecture. He's doing it as we speak. And by all means, do come on and join us if you can, with or without a glass. And for those who are leaving, thank you very much and good night. And to those staying, welcome again.
Malcolm, could you take the presentation down now?
There we are. My goodness. And you're in pride of place, Captains Parrott and Freestone.
Thank you.
There you are. That was really excellent, really good. I hope you were pleased with the way it worked for you.
Well, we got a bit upset because there was feedback coming through my computer, and John was trying very hard to speak over it. I don't know how it came over with everybody.
As in our rehearsal, Malcolm, it was not intrusive at all. I think that's fair to say, Jenny and Fiona, is that right? And Matt, if you're there. It wasn't intrusive word. We heard what you said, John, and it worked, but I realized it would have been very difficult for you. Yeah, you need a glass. Come on, John, you've earned it. And the other thing is, I was very disappointed you didn't take your guitar to Panama, because with that hat, you would have been the complete story.
Yeah, it was great. They were a great tug crew. And when I said the Navy had invented that, and I had that picture of my grandfather on my phone, they were really quite amazed. And especially the New Zealand going through without a tug as well. You know, she was a big battle cruiser, and no, it was a fantastic time, and they were such a happy-go-lucky crew, but so skilled. You see them take. That was the biggest ship that had been through last year, 2017. That was the biggest ship. Yeah, really great.
Kennelly, bravo Zulu. Well done for getting out of bed.
Hello, Kennelly.
And you're on mute at the moment, Paul. You're still on mute.
Yes, good morning. I've just finished my first cup of Yorkshire tea.
I was going to say, I wonder whether Julie's been brought one in bed yet, Paul.
No, it's cold and miserable here, and pitch dark outside. But that's the problem we have. We're in the southern hemisphere in July.
As they used to say in the old Andrew Pauls, you know, if you can't take a joke, you shouldn't have joined.
I know, I appreciate that. Malcolm, thank you. It's good to see you, and I really appreciated everything. And John, the pictures of HMS New Zealand were wonderful to see. And I was in the museum recently. They got some very fine pictures in there, but I wasn't sure whether they got these or not. But thank you for telling me.
Yeah, it's down to Nick Jellicoe. Thanks to him, I was at a dinner with him in the Maritime Museum, and I mentioned about my grandfather, and he said, "I got some great pictures after the Battle of Jutland, when she went to the Dominions, and so he sent them to me, and I had them on the phone long before I went to Panama."
Well, they're brilliant. I think there's various parts of the ship in the chapel at Philomel here, and that's really very significant to see all of that. Thank you again.
That's very good indeed. Now, welcome. Good evening to some of the regulars, which is wonderful. The fakes are there. Hi there. David down in South Africa, good to see you, David Blake, and Angela J. Oh yeah, my goodness me, both watches we've got Johnny as well. Good to see you. Excellent. And who else we got? Jenny, I know you. Captain Taylor, good evening to you. Where's Diana? She's normally sitting by your side.
Getting the wine.
Oh, well, that's the most important thing. That's terrific. And we have Gosh, we have, is that Orlando down there on Maria Dixon? Are you able to come on, switch on your camera, Orlando?
Cheers, everyone.
Good health to you. I've
Where's
only got water, I'm afraid. I failed miserably. But there it is. And Shuttleworth, very good to see you. What do you think about Kenley getting out of bed in the morning? Both watches of Kenley. It's amazing.
Amazing.
It is. He's probably going straight back to bed straight afterwards. And gosh, we got Holly. How are you, Holly, over there on the edge of the lake? Are you keeping well?
Hi, how are you?
Nice to see you, Holly, over in the States.
You, Alistair? Thank you. Thank you, Malcolm, for the fascinating talk. I want to ask, the Panama Canal, are cruise ships allowed to go through there, or is it just strictly commercial?
Oh, no. The cruise ships, big cruise ships go through there and always have done.
Oh.
Did you take the cruise ship through yourself, Malcolm, when you were master?
My ship was the biggest ship that went through the Corinth Canal. And I took it through the Corinth Canal every week.
Good heavens.
It's the biggest ship that ever went through there.
How long is that, the canal? That goes across Greece, doesn't it, for those who don't know?
It's 1.5 miles long, and it takes well over an hour to do it, because you go through it because you're pushing, certainly the ship the size that I had, you're pushing the whole of the Aegean Sea ahead of you.
Yeah.
Lost. No,
Alistair, excuse me, I would like to say I was at a bookstore over the weekend in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I bought, in honor of the Wellington, although it's the wrong ship name, a HMS Belfast guide from the Imperial War Museum, copyright 1982. I presume somebody must have bought it, and I don't know how it got to the bookstore.
Well spotted. Funny you should mention that, actually, Holly, because I was looking at the Belfast yesterday.
Really?
I was just looking at the one of these sort of sites that says what you can do on board as a visitor, and looking at her. She's the small tub just down the river from us, downstream from us. Almost as significant as the Wellington, but not quite. No, she's a great ship. She's a great ship.
Also, I'm very honored to celebrate my 67th birthday. Was yesterday, July 11th. But I knew I was going to come to your talk today, so I'm very honored and privileged to celebrate my 67th birthday with all of you wonderful people. And I thank
happy birthday to you +1. Happy unbirthday, as they say over here.
Thank you.
I won't try singing you, because if I do, everyone will turn off their sound of their screen. But well done indeed.
Alistair,
thank you.
Alistair, I see Orlando there.
Yes, he is. Do you want to greet?
I'll speak to him. Hola, Orlando. ¿Qué tal?
Hello, how are you?
Muy alegro verte, extraño. Mucho estupendo, the restaurante de pescado. ¿Entiendes?
Fish restaurant. Got that much. That's great. Orlando, what time of day is it where you are?
Right now it's 13:44.
Oh, by golly. There we are. You're still training us.
Orlando, did we make any mistakes?
No, it was perfect. It was very good.
Thank you.
Gracias.
And Malcolm, I think one of your colleagues, is it Bill Annenston, is up as well?
Yes. Hi, Bill. Bill, you're muted. Yeah. Hi, Bill.
Hello, Yaka. Good morning. It's about 08:45 here in the middle of the Pacific. Malcolm, you and John did an excellent job. I think those of your attendees that maybe not be as familiar with the Panama Canal, I think you addressed a lot of their interesting inquiries.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a brilliant dissertation. It really was. That's great. Bill Allen, Chris Bell, good to see you. I think you've been on before, and it's good to see you.
Yeah, can I just say, I really enjoyed it. I've been trying to get my wife to come on a cruise that takes us through the Panama Canal. I keep on telling her that it was the highlight of my professional career at sea. I was on the man's run for so many years, running between Montreal, the States, Australia and New Zealand, backwards and forwards. It was like a bus route. And the Panama Canal, well, I did it when I was 17 the first time, and it blew my mind, and I think it still does. I'd love to see the new lakes.
How many times do you remember how many times you did it, Chris?
Honestly, no. I lost count. I know that I did 2 years on one ship as a cadet because I was having so much fun and didn't want to come home. And I ended up arriving at Dock Street to present my papers, only to discover I was 3 days short of my sea time to go for second mates.
Oh, no.
And the chief examiner, the best part was the chief examiner signed me off. And I was with Ellerman Lines and they wouldn't accept it. They sent me back to the ship to sign on coastal articles and required me to go back just before she sailed from the docks again.
You must be a very happy man being on the man's run, because I was on that for about 3 years.
Why would anybody want to go home?
I was also on it, Chris. I was with the New Zealand Shipping Company on the Waranui.
Oh, you weren't on the Rakaya, were you?
I was an Otaio cadet.
Oh, right. Okay. Because I was on the Lucknow, the first trip. That was Ellerman's cadetship.
Yeah, miserable time we had, didn't we?
Oh, absolutely awful.
Yeah.
We used to call the Pacific crossing of 21 days R&R.
Because you didn't have to do anything. You were just.
Oh, no, you needed that to recover from the social life at the other end. But my wife's in the other room.
Much smaller way. Exactly. Now, John, you have your family on, so I see, which is fantastic.
Mate, where's that?
Victoria.
Victoria Freestone.
Oh, Victoria.
Yeah.
How's my Spanish? Más o menos? You're muted, Tori.
Muy bueno. Very good.
Muted. Can you use Orlando for me, properly, Tori? Because
okay, is he still there, Orlando?
Yes, I'm still here.
Voy a. ¿Where's Orlando?
Oh.
Hola, Orlando. ¿Qué tal? Soy la hija de John. Y mi padre quería que decir que mi padre está extrañando mucho, de menos, el restaurante de pescado. Él me dijo que fue genial.
Pues yo también los extraño mucho.
Okay.
I hope they come back soon, guys.
Yeah. Great time. Yeah. He talks
Genuine fee. That's a reminder. The next lecture we should do in Spanish. Okay.
All right.
We got to actually prove that we can do everything with the Wellington Trust lectures. That's fantastic. Thanks, Victoria and Orlando. That was great to hear.
So,
Sure.
my friend here is from Panama, so we just.
All right.
Nice to meet you. I'm James from Panama. I live basically next to the Panama Canal, basically under the Bridge of the Americas.
Good heavens.
Yeah.
Have they finished that new bridge that that John was talking about? Is that the Bridge of the Americas? The one they most recently constructed?
The first bridge is the Bridge of the Americas.
Yeah.
The second one was, I mean, I'm talking about like the regular bridge that it's permanent, not the swivel one. Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
So the Bridge of the Americas, 1962, if I'm not mistaken. Then 2004, the Centennial.
Yes.
That's the second bridge. Then the third bridge, which was being built during their visit, was built toward the north coast, which is Colón. and that is that I believe we need to ask we need to ask Orlando if it has been finished. Sorry, I've been in the UK for the last 2 years, so I'm not updated.
Yes, that's finished.
It has
Yeah,
been.
that's finished. Yeah, for
And now
the
we're
last 2 years,
building
I think.
we're building a fourth one, hopefully very soon, which will connect not just it will not just be for cars, but also for the metro line.
Yeah,
That's correct.
sure.
That's correct.
That really picks up. It's interesting because I took a photo on this. You won't see it, but of the map of the Panama, and it's remarkable that that lake up towards the Pacific end, I guess, is the main source of the water. Yep. And I know Richard, if you're still on, Richard Shuttleworth, you asked that question, which we didn't get around, and apologies for asking, which is, you made the observation that, with, I guess, probably global warming as much as anything, is there a problem in terms of what's going to be water supply to maintain ever-increasing traffic in terms of size, and also possibly new channels being built as well? Is that a real issue? Is that going to be the limiting factor, do you think, Orlando, or do you think it's not a problem?
Yes, it is. It is the number one problem right now. And we are approaching the middle of the rainy season now, so it's no problem now. But come the dry season, then it becomes a really big problem. And they have like 3 new projects undergoing right now. Tunnel. There is one which is the biggest one, which is a multi-billion-dollar project, which is tunneling water underwater. A tunnel to bring water from a province up north. Where there's a big river there, and and then they're planning on building more reservoirs also to catch more water. But it is a problem, and according to the new administrator, is the number one problem for the Panama Canal future, because they are also already planning on the next set of locks. So in thinking of that, you have to solve the water situation first.
That's very interesting. That business of tunneling. How far is that tunnel? How long would that tunnel need to be in round terms?
Oh my God, it's quite a few miles. I don't know exactly how long, but let me see. It has to cross half of the province of Panama.
Oh, good heavens.
I mean, it's a long way.
Yeah. And the idea of pumping
but there's a big lake over there where they are planning on bringing the water, and it's a big river, and right now it's only used for hydroelectric purposes. So actually all the water is being lost to the ocean, and it's actually in the middle of the jungle. So if you look at the map of Panama, you can locate it right away, because it's practically uninhabited, the whole area there of the jungle, limiting with Colombia.
What a shame they can't think in terms of combining the hydro and the canal schemes, so that the water flows through the hydroelectric, creates the energy, but then finishes up down in the canal.
The Chagres River, isn't it, Orlando? That's. Did you hear that, Orlando?
No, I didn't. Say that again.
We're talking about the Chagres River there, aren't we?
Talking about the Chagres River, Orlando.
Yeah. Well, that is the source of the water right now, and they protect it like diamonds. I mean, it's fine. I mean, it's fine. It's just that the dry season and El Nino, I mean, it really affects us during the dry season.
Yeah. That's amazing. Now, let me move on to the Blakes. Johnny, you're going to be doing a lecture for us, I think, in the not too distant future. Is that right?
Yes. Date to be fixed, but I'm looking forward very much to.
That'll be really excellent. It'll be a great topic. I mean, you've got it anyway. when it comes up, the IDFC charts.
Yes.
Here Be Monsters is the working title.
Yeah, Here Be Monsters is lovely, exactly. And David, how are you down in South Africa? I think you asked a question, it might have been last time or the time before last, about, I think it was something you wanted to see whether you could be bring down for your ship society or something of that sort. Was that right? Can you remember what it was?
Well, yes. What it was there was a side conversation going on, and I said that talk should be you should put that into a whole evening's presentation. And I'm afraid it escapes me what exactly it was. It was about a warship, and you had a good conversation with somebody, but it just doesn't come to mind.
Oh, good heavens above. Fee, you haven't got any spare time, have you, to actually find out what we were talking about? Does Matt record this part of the proceedings and keep it as well?
Yes.
Whether some of the end. Well, Matt, if there's, I'm happy to do this if you want. You can point me in the right direction. I'll do some research and see where that conversation came up in our post-lecture wash-up. And David, let's see if we can follow that up. If you'd like that idea, let's see if we can do something with it. Okay.
Good idea. They're all on YouTube, Alistair.
They're all on YouTube.
And the brand new website.
Of course, which is the one I'm going to patronize rather than YouTube. That's very good. It's now fast approaching 8 o'clock, so we'll begin to think about wrapping up, I think. But it's been, as ever, a great wash-up. And Diana, good evening, by the way. I haven't said hello to you.
Hello, sorry.
I hope you're well. Yeah.
Sorry about that. I was sent in from the garden in thunderstorms and everything, trying to gather flowers, which shows why I'm looking a little bit.
This has been the greenest July I can remember for years. It's amazing, isn't it?
I've got to do funeral flowers for tomorrow, and I don't know how I'm going to pick them in a thunderstorm. Anyway.
Exactly. And how the fakes, are they keeping well this month? Good. You're on mute, but it's good to see you anyway. There you are.
I was going to
muted.
Yep. Was that Bill? Did you say something?
I'm muted.
No, you're not. You are muted.
Chapman?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, this is Bill Anderson out in Honolulu. I was going to share with the group there, particularly since a lot of you are very interested in maritime heritage and the Falls of Clyde, which was launched in 1878 from Glasgow, built by a Russell and Company that we had as museum ship here in Honolulu. I've been assisting them in a process to actually return the vessel, which is the last surviving iron-hulled four-mast full-rig ship and the only remaining sail-driven oil tanker back to Glasgow. So I don't know if you folks have heard of that endeavor on your side.
Not at all, but it's something I think will be of extreme interest to us. Wouldn't you think so, Jenny and Fee?
I would. We'll look into that, see what we can put on our website.
So you're involved in that project, are you, Bill?
Yes. In fact, in my early days when I was sailing, just prior to actually going to sea, when I was still in school, I actually spent just shy of 3 years as a rigger doing the restoration work when we were restoring it.
Good heavens above. Where is she at the moment?
She's here at Honolulu Harbor, and that's the picture you see right there. She's actually, unfortunately, she's behind the Aloha Tower, so you can't quite see it. Malcolm's very familiar with it, having when he was on the PM&O container ships that used to call here. In fact, I was their port agent.
There is you probably know an organization over here which is called NHS. It's easy enough to remember that. It's not National Health System, it's National Heritage Ships.
Yeah, so the Falls of Clyde actually falls under the back in 1989, she was designated as a U.S. National Historical Landmark. So that then, and there's some funds that they were looking at actually restoring her and getting her back to sailing. I mean, the groups in Scotland, that's what their intent is, but I think that might be more of a pipe dream than anything else. I mean, it's nice to see that she would be restored, having, being the last surviving 4-masted full-rig ship.
It's amazing that there's anything of that sort still surviving, because that date, 1878, falls plumb into that period of conversion, wasn't it, from sail to steam, which really started as early as about 1820, I believe, if I'm not wrong. But I think it would be a fascinating project to carry through, and I think we would like to follow that with interest.
Alistair, if I might say, might be able to persuade Bill to actually put on a presentation, because he managed the around the world trip of a Pacific, the indigenous people of the Pacific, and it went all the way around the world, and it was a sailing vessel. I think it was motorized, but Bill actually might.
I think we'd very much. I think that's a lovely prompt, Malcolm. Thank you. I think it would be very good to mark your cards, as we say on that, Bill.
Bill,
if we can.
Yeah, it's the Hokulea, which is actually a replica of the Polynesian voyaging canoes that actually traversed the Pacific here 2,000 years ago, and there's no motor. In fact, that was a real challenge getting through the Panama Canal, because that's a requirement to go through the Panama Canal. So that we had some issues with, but that was about a 3.5-year voyage. And the Hokulea next year is starting a 4-year voyage around the Pacific Basin.
Oh, that's fascinating. I think it's a story.
So the Secretary General of the United Nations actually welcomed us in New York City, and we were the invited guests for all of the United Nations as part of climate change.
Yep.
So Hokulea is not just the which is the Hawaiian word for canoe, but it's more about the revaluing its relationship to planet Earth and some of the issues that we're dealing with, and the struggles that the world's populations are having, and our ability to live in balance with our island planet that we call Earth.
It's an experience. If you think about sail, natural energy, etc., that has got to come into consideration as time goes by. I think transportation.
What's extremely interesting about it, the whole purpose was to show that this was not, there was actually, because this is non-instrumental navigation, that the actual art of how these ancestral canoes and navigators were able to purposely find the islands and repeat it over and over again is a lost art. And we actually have only 6 people now that were trained by the last navigator who passed away. And so we're fortunate we're able to save this for future generations. So it's I think would be a very interesting story, because it's really about the navigational component of non-traditional, non-instrumental navigation.
Bill, I've got a definite nod from Jenny Mosley, who is top of the tree organizing these lectures. She's the vice chair of the Friends of the Wellington, for whom these lectures were originally arranged, or by whom they were arranged. And I think you've got that on the list, haven't you, Jenny?
It's certainly on my mental list, and perhaps Malcolm, you can give me Bill's email address and we can communicate.
That'd be wonderful. Now, going back a little way, Chris, you did a wave, I think, and you were chopped off. So come in.
I don't know if anybody can answer this now. I was hoping to get Orlando before he left. 1962 was the first time I went through the canal, and there was a Liberty ship, tied up in the Gatun Lakes I seem to recall that it apparently had a nuclear reactor on board to provide power. And in those days, there was still water problems in the canal. And I'm not sure if it was used for pumping water or for powering the systems in the canal. But I know there was a big issue about power and water supplies at that time. Anybody else recall that? Because I'm particularly interested. Was it a folk story or what? But it
Would
was
you been around at that time, Malcolm?
Well, I certainly went through the canal in 1962, that's for sure. I would have done 2 or 3 times, but maybe more. But I can't recall ever seeing a Liberty ship tied up there.
Are you sure you're not confusing a nuclear reactor with a triple expansion steam engine?
No, she was tight. The Liberty boat was, when you went up, came out of the Gatton locks at the top into the lake, she was over on the, a long way over on the starboard side against the side of the lake somewhere. And that was the story that was going around. So probably maritime folklore.
Interesting.
Orlando could have answered that, but I don't.
Yeah, there it is. I think on that note of high nuclear interest and folklore, I think it's probably time to secure, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know, unless you wish to go on. I've got to go and water the garden, would you believe? This sounds crazy, but I am in East Anglia. We don't get as much rain as you people do.
Dumping outside.
Is it really?
Yes, dumping and thunder and lightning.
Well, that's amazing. Well, none of it ever gets our way. Well, it does occasionally.
It'll be on its way to you, Alistair, don't worry.
And the dog is quivering at my feet.
You've missed your evening walk, haven't you, Stephen?
I know.
You better make it so, will you? Anyway, thank you all very, very much for coming on. I think it's been absolutely great to have you here this evening. I will thoroughly enjoy these wash-ups, as I call them, afterwards. And for one and all of you for coming on, thank you so much. And again, Malcolm and John, bravo Zulu. Thank you so much for a fantastic lecture. See you next time. All the best.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.